When I discovered by me, a bossy tyrant in my head started giving me orders and criticizing all my decisions. Sometimes I can't tell if my thoughts on what actions I should take are truly my own or are the creation of the critical bossy tyrant. How do I distinguish between the two? Anybody got somebody else living in their head that keeps trying to screw them up? The good news is we're going to be learning a lot as we move forward on managing different, let's call it internal personalities. In fact, we have a whole module on it called Managing the Multiple Personality Puzzle. But you're going to have to wait till we get to module 9 for that, which incidentally, I was just debriefing with EMF 17. But if we just look at this for a second, when I discovered by me, a bossy tyrant in my head started giving me orders. Now, where does the self-talk come from? Ever thought of that? Well, we could debate it for a long time. The reality is that we don't know. We can only come up with a model of understanding that empowers us or disempowers us. That's pretty much everything. But if we look at how Doris is trying to frame this, it's almost like I've got an internal battle. I've got this little person sitting on my shoulder, feeding me all this crap of self-doubt, self-criticism. Now, let's be honest. You are creating that. There isn't actually somebody sitting on your shoulder. Now, what has influenced the creation of that is a different question. Most likely, the pattern that you're running on there is trying to protect you. What do you think it's trying to protect you from? And this is on a postcard in the chat. Nick says, uncertainty. What's it trying to protect you from? Making mistakes, failure. Yeah, pretty much. Because if I've got an internal critic that is barking at me, it's usually got one of two outcomes. One is to try to get me on my game, to goad me into being better than it. The other is essentially just forcing me to be mindful of failure. And if it shows me the danger of failure loud enough, I won't engage and risk the failure. Everybody follow? There's always a potential upside as well as a downside. Now, on this situation, it is a big downside because our self-talk governs how we show up. Right from the Henry Ford, if you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. If you walk into a meeting with, let's say, a football team or an athletics team, the talent at the top of the tree is almost inconsequential because it's so minusculely different. You've got to earn, to be a premiership footballer, you've got to have premiership level skill, right? You're not getting in otherwise. So what's the difference between a team that crushes it and a team that doesn't? It's the self-talk of the players. You go 2-0 down at halftime, and now you've got teams that rise to that challenge and teams that feel defeated already. They've just got to limp out the last part of the game. So if our self-talk is not on point, we need to be mindful of that, because at that point, you're your own coach. You're your own halftime pep talk. And if that isn't up to must, because there's a part of you from an immature pattern that was ran from childhood that says, don't do it in case you fail, it's forgetting to tell you that you've already failed by not doing it. Or it just sets up to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the first thing is to take ownership of that, but not to the point where you believe it's you. You own responsibility for the talk, for the language, but it's not who you are. It's just a pattern that's running. Everybody see the difference there? Okay? Because if it's a pattern that's running, you can change the pattern. If it's who you are, you've got to change your identity. And most people find that a struggle. It's far easier to be congruent with who you think you are than it is to change who you think you are, even if you know that who the new person would be is better. So when it comes to managing self-talk, the first thing to do is really just recognize it's there. Hey, listen, I have this pattern. Let's not deny or delude ourselves, but it's just a pattern. Then you can ask better questions. Where does it come from? What's it trying to do? This is how we did the belief audit around the financial questions. A lot of you found out it wasn't you talking, was it, about money? It was mom and dad. Yeah, it was our friends growing up who were basically telling us what their mom and dad's beliefs were. And where do you think mom and dad got their beliefs from? So being able to break that chain by recognizing it for what it is and realizing that you are not your money, your bank account, you're not your beliefs around money. You simply have beliefs around money. And just like you have clothes in a wardrobe, you can change them depending on what is more appropriate for the environment you're walking into. Is this making sense, guys? Okay, cool. So when I discovered By Me, a bossy tyrant in my head started giving orders. Now, that as a level of consciousness is usually a positive at that level of development. Just as moving from diapers to a potty is a good level of development from somebody who's going from 2 years old to 3 years old. But you don't want to be stuck there when you're 20 years old. That's no longer appropriate. So going from to me, victim mode, apathy, victim, into I'm going to pull my thumb out of my ass and make it happen, that level of self-talk is useful. Come on, bossy tyrant, you can do this. Get off your backside. Come on, let's make it happen. Hustle, hustle. But it's not useful moving forward if you want to start living life at a more effortless level of living. So who owns the voice? Well, you take ownership of the fact the voice is there, but there's better voices to have. And those answers are coming. In fact, we will be discussing voices in the head several times moving forward. How do you distinguish between, whether it's you or the one? Just separate it as a pattern that's running. If you can do that, and we'll be doing this continuously through this program, I'm going to be teaching you how to spot patterns. You want to get good at working with people, get good at spotting patterns. You want to get good at understanding yourself, get good at spotting your own patterns, because we are creatures of habit. It's how we're evolutionarily set up to be wired into repeat behaviors. And those behaviors, more often than not, are trying to protect us, usually from avoiding the fear that we're not enough, and therefore ultimately we won't be loved. But I'm getting ahead of myself.